Good morning. My name is Alix Jules. I'm the historian for the Fellowship of Freethought. Today is January 16th, 2010. It is 11:05. 2011. I'm going to be doing that for a while. All right. Do we have any visitors, new visitors today? Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to our first gathering of the year. Happy National Religious Freedom Day. Today commemorates the Virginia General Assembly's January 16th adoption of the Virginia Statutes for Religious Freedom. This landmark piece of legislation, drafted by Thomas Jefferson and pushed within the legislature by James Madison, provided for the freedom of religion and separation of church and state. It was the precursor and model for the Religion Clause in the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In pre-revolutionary times, most American colonies had supported majority or established religions, usually Congregationalist or Anglican, financially through church tax or church taxes, just as England did. People who preached religious views that differed from those established churches were often liable to fines and imprisonment as well, just as they would have been in England. When independence came, the issue was looked at again by various state legislatures. The statute ended Virginia's nursing of churches and guaranteed that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinion in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. So when we profess and maintain our opinions in the matter of religion, here's a question. How many people here think you need God in your life to be good? I didn't think so. Okay, so let me ask the question differently. How many of you believe that you can actually be good without God? Okay, so now you're seeing a little bit of a problem that I had when trying to come up with the introduction for today, because it is good without God. And for all of you that know you can be good without God, I don't have to convince you. Me telling you does nothing to advance this idea in the minds of those that don't believe we can be. So to borrow a phrase, I'd be preaching to the choir. But the topic has been very hot for several of us in our communities. We know that we're good without God, but no one else does. I can look around and see some of the kindest, most charitable people I know, even Jason Hollis, who I joke around a lot about, but he's one of the first to give up his time and spend it with our kids every time he's asked, without failure. And I know, at least with some of my kids at least, that's asking a lot. But let's go to the ads for a minute, and I really tried to stay away from it today, but I can't. We made the statement, good without God, and got visceral reactions. And I was one of the first to state that the ad says nothing about theists or believers, but says everything about non-believers. So I could not imagine why they were so angry. It's just a contradictory view, is it not? I had a little time to think about it, and I was wrong. Imagine you are one of two children forced to grow up in a house with a tyrannical, abusive, and sometimes schizophrenic father. You are the child that he beat every Sunday and told you are trash, you are not worthy. He conditioned you to fear. You were told that you were born into sin, from sinners, and you are worthless. Everything you do outside of his glory is wrong and will be punished. You were so abused that he didn't even have to touch you for you to wet yourself and start shaking at the sound of him walking up the stairs. Imagine how that fear molded you. Now imagine your little brother who never got scolded for doing wrong because he was just one of those kids that never got in trouble. He could do no wrong, he never got beat. This child leaves the house, leaves the fold, but you stay. Now imagine this child one day reminding you of that fact. The fact that he didn't have to get beaten like a slave to be good. He was good without fear, would you not want to take this child out back to yourself? In that one sentence, he was telling you, without saying it or necessarily meaning it, that he was better than you because he didn't need the belt to behave. And too often, we're in abusive relationships. We cannot see what normal is. We become the abuser's defenders. We equate those beatings or verbal lashings with love, not knowing that it doesn't have to be that way. How often do we see the black-eyed lover go back to the abuser, and no matter how many times you say, please don't, they jump back into their arms? For us, we ask, why would you want to spend an eternity with someone like that? And it's a question that any concerned friend, relative, parent, whatever would ask. The parallel is too often accurate for some of us that grew up in that house, but we sometimes forget there's another child. We have to remember that we're not the only victims. We still have siblings on the inside that are getting beat every Sunday, and ultimately, it's up to them to break the cycle and leave, but what are we going to do in the meantime? They want to argue that morality comes from their father, their God. And I'll argue that this source of morality itself is the most morally bankrupt, perverted, sexually predatory, narcissistic, heterosexist, hematomaniac to date. And that no good can come of it or the poorly written literary fiction that it's accredited to inspiring to plagiarize. Hematomania being, of course, the blood fetish. He got his laugh. Okay, but that's a little inflammatory. True. And doesn't get us too far in the public discourse that we're trying to have. The better question is, how are you going to show them by example that there are normal relationships with reality out there? And if they don't know that you're out there, how can they know that you're being good without God? You, your actions, and the way you live your life is our most powerful and compelling billboard to date. All you have to do is let them know you're out there. With that, I'll end by saying welcome, and I'll bring up the faithless companions.